6:15 p.m. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news edited by Anjana Dodamgoda, assisted by Sanjay, and read by Geethanjali Ramanayaka. The headlines. The President expresses deep concern about the recent violence that erupted in Brazil. The Ministry of Agriculture says that the stock of diesel donated by China will be distributed to the farmers from today. Public urged to contact SLBC before paying foreign employment agencies. The wildlife officers have been instructed to arrest individuals feeding wild animals. Foreign news: far-right supporters of Brazil's ex-president Bolsonaro storm Congress Presidential Palace. Sports: Australian Open, players can compete even if they have COVID-19. News in detail. President Ranil Wickremesinghe says, and I quote, "I'm deeply concerned about the recent violence that erupted in Brazil. Sri Lanka not so long ago experienced similar attempts by groups to overthrow democratic structures through unconstitutional means. Such hostilities are condemned, and we stand in solidarity with the President, government, and the people of Brazil in this hour of confrontation. It is imperative that democracy and its institutions are universally respected by all citizens," unquote. Meanwhile, on Sunday, thousands of protesters ransacked Brazil's Congress Presidential Palace and Supreme Court in Brasilia. The demonstrators refused to accept that former President Jair Bolsonaro lost October's election and want to see military intervention and the resignation of President Lula. The Ministry of Agriculture says that a stock of diesel donated by China will be distributed to the farmers from today. Diesel will be distributed to farmers through a new program implemented by the Ministry of Agriculture. China had given 10.6 million liters of diesel for free distribution to the farmers. The Ministry of Agriculture took measures to give a part of the stock to the fishermen. The remaining diesel stock of 6.98 million liters will be given to the farmers from today. According to the ministry, this diesel is given to the farmers who have cultivated up to 1 hectare of harvesting, and the amount of diesel issued per hectare is about 15 liters. The National Bus Fare Policy has been revised. National Transport Commission Chairman Shashi Velgama says this decision was taken after a discussion held in Colombo with the private bus trade unions. Accordingly, new bus fare policy will be introduced before the end of March. Due to the fuel price change, it is supposed to reduce the bus fare by 1 rupee as per the agreed ratio, which will not be entertained at this juncture. The chairman expressed this when he was interviewed by the National Radio SLBC today. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. From people. Ministry of Wildlife and Forest Conservation says wildlife officers have been instructed to arrest individuals feeding and harassing wild animals. It has been decided to take legal action against such elements. Ministry has focused its attention on recent media reports on elephant attacks causing damages to the vehicles at Buttala-Kathragama Highway. The Department of Wildlife says as a result of the irresponsible behavior of certain drivers, wild elephants have become agitated. The Conservator General of Forests, KMA Bandara, has refuted media reports implying that Sri Lanka's forest cover has reduced to 16%. He said this in response to a query made regarding the media report on the instructions of President Secretary Saman Ekanayake, the President's Media Division reported. The Presidential Secretariat had focused its attention regarding these reports published in the media, it added. The assessment of forest cover is carried out every 5 years, and the census conducted in 2020 is scheduled to be completed in June this year. According to the census conducted in 2015, the natural forests of Sri Lanka stood at 29.1% of the total land extent, according to the PMD. And that ends local news for now. The Sri Lanka Bureau of Foreign Employment informs the general public to obtain details regarding the relevant foreign employment agencies from the SLBFE prior to handing over passports or making any payments to them. In a statement, the SLBFE highlighted that the legitimacy of the relevant foreign employment agency can be confirmed by contacting the SLBFE Information Center via its hotline 1989, which is operational around the clock, or by visiting the SLBFE website www.slbfe.lk. Meanwhile, the investigation officers of the SLBFE have raided an illegal foreign employment agency, according to a complaint received by the Special Investigations Unit of the SLBFE that the agency has defrauded an amount of 450,000 rupees from a youth who was promised employment in Dubai. The concerned youth, who is a resident of the Tirukkovil area, had complained to the SLBFE that he was not provided with a job as promised. And that was our main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya. Brush your teeth twice a day for healthy teeth and gums.
In Watchlight this evening, Sri Lanka's imports were down by 18.1% to $1,445 million in November 2022, with exports falling but money to import coming from tourism and stronger official remittances, official data showed. In November, exports fell 17.9% to $994 million. The trade deficit was $450 million, down from $553 million last year, but slightly higher from October. In late 2021, imports were boosted by the use of reserves for intervention and sterilization by new cash. And that was Watchlight. Moving on to a bulletin of world news in the headlines. Far-right supporters of Brazil's ex-president Bolsonaro storm Congress presidential palace. UAE makes historic decision to teach Holocaust in schools. And Apple is raising the price of iPhone battery replacements. Supporters of former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, who refused to accept his election defeat, stormed Congress, the Supreme Court and Presidential Palace in the capital on Sunday, a week after inauguration of his leftist rival, President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Thousands of demonstrators bypassed security barricades, climbed on roofs, smashed windows, and invaded all three buildings, which were believed to be largely vacant and sit on Brasilia's vast three-power square. Some of them called for a military intervention to either restore the far-right Bolsonaro to power or oust Lula from the presidency. The United Arab Emirates will begin teaching about the Holocaust in history classes in primary and secondary schools across the country, the country's embassy in the US says. The embassy provided no details on the curriculum, and education authorities in the Emirates, a federation of 7 sheikdoms, did not immediately acknowledge the announcement on Monday. However, the announcement comes after the UAE normalized relations with Israel in 2020 as part of deal brokered by the administration of President Donald Trump. Apple is raising the price of battery replacements for all out-of-warranty iPhone models prior to the current iPhone 14 lineup, the company confirmed on its website. Starting March 1st, Apple will charge $89 for battery replacements for iPhone X through iPhone 13 models, a $20 increase from the current price of a new battery, and battery replacements for other models such as the iPhone SE and iPhone 8 will jump from $49 to $69. Back to the headlines of the world news. Far-right supporters of Brazil's ex-president Bolsonaro storm Congress presidential palace. UAE makes historic decision to teach Holocaust in schools. And Apple is raising the price of iPhone battery replacements. That ends world news.
Development news.
Sri Lanka's China-backed Hambantota International Port Group said it is looking to expand yard space as its vehicle transshipment volumes from roll-on, roll-off car carriers continue to climb. In the year 2022, Hambantota International Port handled a total volume of 558,188 units through 249 vessel calls, which is expected to increase in 2023. Hambantota Port said it had been aggressively marketing its services and regular overseas visits to the shipping line principals to promote the port. And that was development news. Moving on to sports news, it's tennis. Players at the Australian Open will not need to take COVID-19 tests and could play even if they have the virus. Last year, players had to test daily and isolate if positive and also had to be vaccinated, while in 2021, the event took place in a biosecure bubble. 9-time champion Novak Djokovic, who is unvaccinated, was deported last January just before the tournament because of his COVID-19 status. And that was sports news.
Go National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
India, for the first time, surpassed Japan in auto sales last year and moved up to third place globally, according to Nikkei Asia report published on Friday. At least 4.25 million new cars were sold in the country, surpassing Japan's 4.2 million sales. As per the Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturers, the total number of new vehicles delivered in India between January and November 2022 is 4.13 million. The total rises to about 4.2 million units when the sales volume of Maruti Suzuki for December is added. And that was business news.
Business news, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money. Go
News, Sri Lanka needs its creditors to share the burden of debt restructuring. Leading global economists have said, calling all lenders to cancel the debt of the cash-strapped island nation. In a statement issued on Sunday, eminent economists and scholars world over observed that amid Sri Lanka's crucial debt negotiations, all lenders, bilateral, multilateral, and private, must share the burden of restructuring with assurance of additional financing in the near term. However, Sri Lanka alone cannot ensure this on its own, they noted. It requires much greater international support. Instead of geopolitical maneuvering, all of Sri Lanka's creditors must ensure debt cancellation sufficient to provide a way out of the current crisis, the statement said. And that was economic news.
Weather report.
Showers or thunder showers will occur at a few places in the Sabaragamuwa province and in the Galle, Matra and Nuwara district during the afternoon or night. A few showers are likely in Nuwara province, and the general public is kindly requested to take adequate precautions to minimize damages caused by temporary localized strong winds and lightning during thunder showers. This weather forecast was issued at 12 noon today by the department's official website. And that was the weather report, and prior to concluding, the headlines again. The president expresses deep concern about the recent violence that erupted in Brazil. The Minister of Agriculture says that the stock of diesel donated by China will be distributed to the farmers from today. Public urged to contact SLBC before paying foreign employment agencies. Wildlife officers have been instructed to arrest individuals feeding wild animals. Foreign news, far-right supporters of Brazil's ex-president Bolsonaro storm Congress presidential palace. And in sports, Australian Open, players can compete even if they have COVID-19. And with that, we end this news broadcast from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. And it's back to Mariela Vandot.